From the gridiron to the hardwood, James Mesh breaks it all down. It's time for another episode of Cleats and Sneaks.
Welcome into another edition of Cleats and Sneaks, the podcast where we talk about everything for the NBA and the NFL. I am your host, James Mesh, and I do want to remind you, don't forget to like on the video and subscribe to our YouTube channel, ESPN Southwest Louisiana, and don't forget to turn on that notification bell. That way you get notified each time we upload any one of our podcasts or our content, because we cover plenty of stuff here for Tire Change with Dawson Isolo, covering NASCAR. We got Over Par with Matt Miguez, so much more, covering our local teams and getting content there as well. Got a lot of news that came out, especially recently, right before the recording of this podcast. A lot of NFL news, of course, looking like Russell Wilson, to talk about Justin Fields, Saquon Barkley, a lot of franchise tags. The Combine had just wrapped up, and it's getting close to mock draft season, so let's cover it all right here, right now. And starting off, let's look at Russell Wilson. He was cut by the Denver Broncos just the other day. Huge move, because if you remember, back a couple of years ago when the Broncos first made the deal to get Russell Wilson as their new franchise starting quarterback, they gave up a lot of assets. 2 first-round picks, 2 second-round picks, and 3 players, and a little bit more to get Russell Wilson and a day 3 pick that following draft. Since then, Russell Wilson has played in 30 games. The Broncos have finished with an 11-19 record. Wasn't the greatest. I know that record isn't the most reliable QB stat, and he did look a lot better when it came to his touchdown to interception ratio last year when Sean Payton took over, but you could tell with his style of play and how Sean Payton likes to run his offense. Sean Payton-led offenses are all about timing. We need to get it out right here at this point, at this juncture, to this person, at this spot in the field. Russell Wilson isn't like that. He likes to run around, buy time in the pocket, roll out the pocket, buy time with his feet, and then try to find someone downfield, kind of making up like a backyard football type of play. That's how Russell Wilson plays football, and that's how he's been able to make a name for himself in the NFL. So you could tell it was kind of like a square into a round hole type of situation. It just wasn't going to be a good fit. But now with him being straight up cut, he can now go talk to other teams and see who he can sign with ahead of free agency. But one thing to note is that the Broncos, because of this and a huge lucrative contract that Russell Wilson had signed with the Broncos, the Denver organization is going to be eating $85 million in dead cap. The biggest dead cap eat in NFL history. It's bigger than the second and third highest dead cap combined. $85 million. Now it's interesting because you would think there's a few teams that may be interested in him, including the Pittsburgh Steelers, because the jury is still kind of out on Kenny Pickett. We're not quite sure if he's even going to be able to be a competent starting quarterback in the NFL. His first 2 years have been pretty lackluster, and it doesn't look like it's getting any better. But the Steelers did come out to say that we're not interested in Russell Wilson. We're also not interested in Justin Fields. We're not interested in Kirk Cousins because we're not quite sure if he's going to stay in Minnesota either. Reports are saying that he might go to the Atlanta Falcons. They're also not interested in Baker Mayfield. Because of that, makes me interested to see, are you really that committed to Kenny Pickett and seeing if he could still work out for you? I don't know about all that. I would rather try and find someone else. Maybe you can find a different veteran, but if you were going to go for a veteran quarterback, wouldn't you want to go for Russell Wilson? I know he's not at the top of his game. He's not necessarily a top 5, top 10, or top 15 quarterback right now. He's kind of in that wishy-washy area. Maybe he's in the middle of the pack, maybe a little bit worse at this point. But he's still a starting quarterback right now at the moment. And he's willing to take a bargain deal. Like he would do the vet minimum of about $1.7 million. You sign him for a year or two. It's not like it's gonna be that hard against the cap. I think with a lot of teams right now, the fact that they're trying to figure out what to do And there's not many teams that are trying to figure out their QB situation compared to how many veteran quarterbacks are going to be out there to test the market or available for trade, as well as the fact that this is a good draft class for quarterbacks this year. It's not like how it was just a couple of years ago with Kenny Pickett and company. The fact that he was the only one in the first round says a lot about that draft class. But with Jaden Daniels, Caleb Williams, Drake May, Michael Penix Jr., J.J. McCarthy, so on and so forth, with all those quarterbacks, and then the veterans that are probably looking for a new home, there's not enough teams to do that. So I think a couple of teams are going to have to double dip, get a veteran QB like a Russell Wilson, like a Justin Fields or a Baker Mayfield, or even a Jameis Winston, because we had heard about him. He's looking to find a team where he can be the starting quarterback, or at least fight for a starting job in the NFL with a different team other than the New Orleans Saints. You may have to get a veteran like that on a cheap deal, and then also get a quarterback in the first couple of rounds to see what you can do there. Now, it is interesting because I mentioned Justin Fields, and you're thinking, okay, well, if you're the Chicago Bears, you're going to be able to command a solid deal, solid value for him. It's not going to be the first round pick that you spent on him just a couple of years ago when you drafted him, but you can still get what? A second, and maybe a fourth, and maybe you give up a fifth or a sixth plus Fields. You still get some solid compensation while still being able to keep the 101 and the 109. I feel like you would still get fair compensation for that. However, reports have come out that this is going to be a soft market for Fields. Maybe Chicago doesn't have the leverage that we thought they had initially, which is fair because you know that he is a talented player and you saw him get better as the season went along. But if you're a team that's looking for a quarterback, say like Atlanta, why would you give up compensation for Justin Fields when you can just go get someone like Kirk Cousins, who is more established, has more experience in the NFL, while you're still able to keep that 108 pick and still get one of the top quarterback prospects in the draft? Why would I need to trade draft compensation just to get a young QB that I'm going to have to pay very soon because that rookie deal is coming up? It's pretty fair, as well as the fact that the Bears have the 101. At that point, it's not like you're going to get fair compensation to trade out of the 101 and go farther back in the draft. With all that, it ends up making a lot of sense that not too many teams are hopped up on trying to get Justin Fields. If that rookie contract is about to expire, there's plenty of other veteran quarterbacks out there that are likely going to be cheaper in the long term. Plus, you could just get a rookie quarterback that you could groom yourself with your new offensive staff. With Justin Fields not having a good market and Russell Wilson now being cut, there's also other guys that are going to be testing free agency in the running back market. We noticed that the last couple of years, teams are not very interested in paying running backs that high top dollar that we were used to just a couple of years ago, even earlier decades in the 2000s and even the early 2010s and earlier before then. It was all about paying the running back, but nowadays we can find cheap ones that are almost as good, that are just as serviceable, but a lot cheaper. So Saquon Barkley likely to hit free agency because it's not looking good, and the Giants are likely going to move on from him, as well as Josh Jacobs might be finding a new home after the Las Vegas Raiders are not re-signing him, and they're not putting the franchise tag on him either. Same thing with the Giants with Saquon. And it is interesting, though, because there was quite a few guys that did get the franchise tag. I talked about how T. Higgins got it for the Cincinnati Bengals, but you look at Michael Pittman, Brian Burns, Josh Allen, Antoine Whitfield Jr., and Kyle Duggar were just a couple of guys that got hit with the franchise tag for their respective teams. Now, of course, with Michael Pittman, you look at his deal, he was able to get almost $22 million as a franchise tag. You also look at Josh Allen and Antoine Winfield. Winfield as a safety, he's going to be getting just a little bit more than $17 million. Kyle Duggar, he's going to be getting just under $14 million as a one-year deal. And then you look at Jalen Johnson, the quarterback for the Chicago Bears. he's going to be getting just under 20 mil for that franchise tag. Josh Allen, the edge rusher for the Jacksonville Jaguars, he's going to get $22.7 million as his franchise deal, as the teams are looking to try and get to a long-term extension and not have to do this all over again next year. Hopefully they can get it done before free agency or the draft comes around. Now with that, contract extensions, there were a couple out there, including Dalton Schultz, tight end for the Houston Texans. He was able to sign a 3-year extension worth $36 million. I was a big proponent of Brevin Jordan being able to finally get his shot, be able to be a starting tight end in an offense and show what he can do, because he has a lot of athletic ability. He's a little undersized, but I think he can show off his skill set in the right offense if they give him the opportunity. He's not going to get that just yet in Houston now that Dalton Schultz is still back with the team. You also look at another guy that's probably going to hit free agency, and that's Christian Wilkins. Christian Wilkins, they were trying to get maybe a tag and trade type of situation going with the Dolphins. That way they get some sort of compensation, but they weren't. It doesn't seem like they were able to get a trade partner to take him. So it looks like Christian Wilkins will also be hitting the free agent market. So quite a few big names out there this coming free agency that are going to be looking for new homes. And boy, oh boy, let's get to the news that had happened just before the recording of this podcast. The Buffalo Bills, they were way over the cap space. They have way over the cap with all the guys that they had signed, and they released quite a few people. They released center Mitch Morse. They released star cornerback from LSU, Tre'Davious White. Longtime safety Jordan Poyer. Wide receiver Deontay Hardy, also former New Orleans Saint. Running back Nyheim Hines. And defensive back Siren Neal. They were all released. They were all cut. With all these releases and moves, the Buffalo Bills were able to save just north of $36 million. But they were also able to sign offensive lineman David Edwards and punter Matt Hack. Another move by the Philadelphia Eagles, that came up really quickly by Adam Schefter. Avonte Maddox, another cornerback. He was released by Philadelphia, saving them a little bit more than $2 million. Quite a big market for cornerback, and there are also quite a few guys in this upcoming draft. And speaking of draft, I had mentioned it at the end of last episode. I was going to bring up my Mesh's Mock Draft 1.0. I'm not going to go through all 32 picks, but I'll throw a little bit out there. You'll be able to check out the rest of my picks in my Mesh's Mock Draft 1.0 on ESPN SouthwestLouisiana.com. That's going to be dropping early Friday morning. Now, of course, with that, 32 picks, I'll probably hit on a couple of big ones. Now, of course, Chicago Bears, it's not that surprising. At the 101, I have them taking Caleb Williams, the quarterback out of USC. He's the top QB prospect. He's been the consensus number one since pretty much the end of 2 seasons ago when Williams won the Heisman Trophy. He was always projected to be the 101. Chicago, with the fact that they're trying to move on from Justin Fields and find him a new team, it makes all the sense in the world. One thing to note, though, it's been a little weird between what's going to happen with the Washington Commanders at the 102 and the New England Patriots at 103. As of right now, in my first rough draft with these mock drafts, I have the Washington Commanders taking Heisman Trophy winner, quarterback out of LSU, Jaden Daniels. I didn't like how their quarterback play was this year. I know the line wasn't great. I know the team was kind of in shambles, but they now have new ownership. They have a new head coach, new regime. Looks like there's going to be a whole lot of even a new stadium. I think with that, if you have your opportunity to get your franchise quarterback, I say you do so. Getting Jaden Daniels, I personally think that he is the best prospect that you can go with overall when it comes to the quarterback position. Not to say that Caleb Williams won't be a good pro, but with all the extensive tape that I've been able to see of Jaden Daniels at his time at LSU when it came to last year, and then his growth and becoming exponentially better and more confident as a passer this year, plus you look at his running ability, I know a lot of guys are so much more athletic nowadays, so it's not as much of a plus, but you look at him, to me, he's one of the best guys out there, and getting him at the 102 is the right pick for me. For the New England Patriots, I have them taking quarterback Drake May out of North Carolina. I know it's kind of a weird situation. Some people have him in the top 3. Some of them are kind of feeling like he's going to be like a Will Levis situation where he may not even get drafted in the first round. But as of right now, New England could very easily go for a wide receiver. But how confident is Gerard Mayo, the new coach for the New England Patriots, in Mac Jones? If you're New England, wouldn't you want to go try and get a new QB, especially if you're not able to get one of the veterans? And even if you do get a veteran, it's likely going to be a bridge guy. So then you bring in another one as a rookie. In this case, with Caleb and Jaden gone, you go Drake May. He's got a lot of talent out there. You look at Arizona, though. The Cardinals, I have them taking Marvin Harrison Jr. There's been reports that maybe they want to trade out of the 104, trade back a little bit, but kind of in that awkward situation. Unless New England takes a wide receiver, if the top 3 quarterbacks are going in the top 3, why would someone want to trade to the 104 to take J.J. McCarthy or Michael Penix? Why not just stay and maybe trade to the 108, the 109, the 110? Why not trade then? Why would you trade all the way to the 104 to get a QB and have to pay him just a little bit more if some of these other guys, like wide receivers, tight ends, and offensive linemen, if they're going to go over the next couple of picks like I have them doing? Because with the Chargers, I have them actually taking Brock Bowers. I know some people are thinking he's going to drop to the mid to late teens, but we've seen tight ends get taken early before. We saw Kyle Pitts just a couple of years ago be taken by the Atlanta Falcons. It's kind of that similar situation where he's not just a tight end. You can line him up out wide because of his ability to run routes and get open in space. And plus, the tight end room in Los Angeles is just abysmal. I have Malik Neighbors going to the Giants. Looking at the Jets, they really need offensive lineman help. I got them taking Talise Fuaga out of Oregon State. Then I got a little bit of a run right now. Right after that, at 11, the Minnesota Vikings taking J.J. McCarthy, the quarterback out of Michigan. And then the Denver Broncos taking Michael Penix Jr. out of Washington. Now, I am sure you black and gold fans, you're wondering, okay, James, well, who do you have taking at the 14th pick for the Saints? For me right now, I have them taking Troy Fautanu, the offensive tackle out of Washington.